Hi, everyone. It is Brenda Sanchez, and I am the co-owner of Life's Real Currency, and we have a best-selling book. It's called Life's Real Currency. I'm also a retired Air Force major, and I bring you Military Mondays every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. And I like to build relationships, and so does Dawn. Dawn's with me today. So we'd really like to know where you're watching from, whether you're watching live or replay. So put 1 for live and 2 for replay. And we love recognizing our veterans and our veteran families. So if you're a veteran, the spouse of a veteran, the child of a veteran, the grandchild of a veteran, we would really like to know that, because we have people watching from all over the world. So we want to build those relationships around the world. So today I have the honor of having my very good friend Dawn Ramsden with me today. She's with Holistic Healing Experiences. Before she even gets started, I have to tell you, she's the most amazing massage therapist. So if you are here in Colorado Springs, you definitely need to look her up, or put a comment below or a smiley face or something, and she'll reach out to you. My husband did a whole video about 2 years ago when we met Dawn on how amazing she is. So I just wanted to start with that. But she is the spouse of a veteran, and a disabled veteran. And so I wanted to bring her on today, not only to talk about massage and how she can help with traumatic brain injuries and that, but I also wanted her to talk about the challenges of getting a VA disability claim through the VA process. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dawn, and let you share a little bit about yourself and your background.
Thanks. As Brenda said, I'm a licensed massage therapist, and I answered the call straight out of high school, which was 22 years ago, and began learning a lot about healing and our nervous system, and and all of that. And I worked in clinical medicine for 8 years too. So I did massage part-time, and I was a clinical medical assistant. And when I met my husband, Frank, he was training, he was going through the Special Forces Q course to be a medic. So of course we had lots in common to study, helping him study and all that. And then in 2008, we moved out here to Colorado Springs. He passed the Q course after he broke his leg in the last month of training, and so he had to wait 10 months and then go back and finish. And then we got to come out here, and he deployed while our first child was born. So that was an interesting introduction to the military. Right after he got back from deployment, he went to military free fall training. And in that third week of training, it was night jumps, and they're in the middle of Arizona, and there's no illumination, no lighting on the ground. And he came in really fast, and thought he broke his back because it was a pretty rough landing. And he, when he recalls the accident, he doesn't really remember a little piece of time. So we kind of, have assumed for a long time that maybe he was knocked out when that happened. And then when he got back, well, let me just tell you, he jumped 8 more times that week, past the school, because you can't be that guy,
No.
And then when he got back here, he, jumped into doing things on the team. And medical care came second. But when we did go in, they finally did an MRI of his back, and found that he had torn some ligaments, and he had some headaches and neck pain, but mostly it was the back that everybody was concerned about. And so we've been on a long journey since this happened in 2009. And we've been on a long journey to get answers. And a couple years after that, well, immediately after that happened, he started having ringing in his ears, which we all know now, because everybody's a little more aware of brain injuries and things like that, that ringing in your ears is one of the top 3 signs of concussion.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, but instead of them evaluating him for brain injury, because that wasn't forefront back then, they sent him to audiology to have his hearing checked. And so of course it came back normal because his hearing was fine. It was the brain that was having issues. Anyway, fast forward to prescription pain meds for 2 years. He had to get off his team. He worked in the office, and then we're realizing he's really not getting better. He's getting worse. And looking back now, we see, because we weren't treating the root cause. We were just treating all these little symptoms. But it was really scary going through that, the medical board process. And, we knew we'd had friends who had been referred to the board, and sometimes their issues weren't permanent, and they didn't find them, not fit for duty. So they were able to return, or sometimes it was just temporary disability, so they could be reevaluated in a year or two and then come back. And when Frank went for his medical board, he was having a lot of neck pain too. And really that was the issue, is he couldn't put on Kevlar to go out and do medical observation of jumps and range duty. Like, he just couldn't wear the hat because it hurt his neck so bad. So anyway, we went to the medical board, and they came back with a 20% rating for his back.
Wow.
So to paint the picture, my husband took about 10 minutes to get dressed every morning because he couldn't put his socks on. So for him to put his socks on, he had to lay back on the bed, put, like foot up in the air, put his socks on that way. He could barely, get his pants on. Our boys were little. He couldn't pick up the boys. And of course you can imagine how this affected our marriage. Yeah. But we got a 20% rating. And the thing about that is you need 30% to keep your medical benefits and your other benefits. If you are below 30, then essentially they give you a severance paycheck. And I don't know why they call it that, because you have to pay the money back. Did you know that? Yeah. Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
So at that time, my husband had 12 years in service. So that would have been about $80,000, which, would have been a comfort for us. We could have paid outrageous medical premiums for civilian health care. So we knew we weren't going to be homeless immediately if we got that money. But as we were reading it more, then apparently you get ratings from the VA, and then whichever one is higher, that's who pays you. And then of that payment, you pay back like 10% a month to the VA for that severance. Yeah. I know. So we're just like, no, we don't think this 20% is right. So we appealed the case. He went to Washington, not DC, but like around Seattle. And they were able to settle the appeal before he had to go before the board. But they did add 10% for the neck issue. So that gave us the 30% we needed. But, when this was happening, we're just like, we're looking at the ratings online, and he ended up with a 70% from the VA. So to put that in perspective, if you had 100% claim or 100% disability, back then that was a little over $3,000. 70% was like $1,560. So I don't know, the math is frustrating how
it's VA math.
Right.
Because I know with my disability,
yes.
The percentage is not the percentage of the pay I get. So it's VA math.
Yeah. And, it was just a really scary time for us. Thankfully, I had done I'd been involved with network marketing with a company and had a great product. So I was really busy. And so we weren't completely, he's going through this, I forget what the acronym is for it, but basically, while you're going through the board, you have to go do these classes, and they teach you how to write a resume, because you're going to be applying for a job with like 1,000 other people. And of that 1,000 people, only a small amount are going to be, they're even going to look at their stuff again, like a second look, right? Yeah. And of that maybe 100 or 200, only half of those people are going to get an interview, and so on and so forth, to the one person that gets the job. And you're just, there were days he came home and I'm like, thank God for this second job, because I don't know what we do. And so we got out, we found out about a thing called combat-related special compensation. And that was this elusive thing, and we thought, well, it's only gonna be like $100, so why even bother, and just going through that whole process, we just really felt like, wow, okay, we sacrificed all this stuff, and this is the trouble that we've been through. And and even the 100% was like half of what he was making active duty. Mm-hmm. So immediately, even if it's 100%, our paycheck was cut in half. And then to find out you're going to get like half of that was just really an insult. So, you know, kind of working through that, we get out, things get worse, his health gets worse. And I didn't understand fully about PTSD and the signs to look for with that. But essentially that's what he was going through. And he wasn't sleeping well. And we decided we would move back to North Carolina. So, the time came and we were able to move back here, and we thought, you know what, let's do this. We love Colorado Springs. It's our happy place. There's sunshine and lots of resources. So we came back, and he did a sleep study, and we found out he had central apnea.
Oh, wow.
Well, he had complex, which was kind of also surprising because he doesn't snore. So, but basically your brain's not telling your body to breathe. So then we went back to the doctor and we're like, well, why is his brain not telling his body to breathe?
That was a traumatic brain injury.
Well, so we were asking questions like, does he have a brain injury? The more we got to looking into things, this was our experience when we went back to the doctor to ask questions. We're sitting there, it's about 45 minutes after our appointment. And I know from being in the medical community, that means the provider's not getting lunch. He's already running into his lunch. He's going to have to work through lunch. And then his 1 o'clock patients are going to start back. So I know he was already going to be grumpy and rushed. And the nurse working at us up's like, so why are you here today? Well, we have questions about the sleep study. We need some paperwork for the sleep apnea so we can file a claim with the VA for that. And, you know, and I forget the third thing, but she's like, well, we only have time for one. So what's your top one question? We're like, okay, well, I guess the paperwork can wait later. We just really want to understand the results. So he comes in, he looks at my husband and says, why are you here?
What?
In that tone of voice too. And we said, well, we have questions about the sleep study. Well, to backtrack, he wasn't the doctor that ordered the sleep study. The PA the doctor that did left. So we had to find a new PCM. And in the meantime, this new guy had like a 3-week wait to get in with him. So a PA had like a week wait. So we were like, let's just get in with her, get our results. And we go in to see her, and basically her computer was down that day. So she said, you know, here's the deal. You have this, you know, complex sleep apnea. I'm putting in an order for your breathing machine, but don't ask any more questions because my computer's down, which means I already have to chart all these visits when I go home tonight. And you know, we're just like, well, I'm sorry. You know, I'm really sorry, but okay, I guess we won't ask questions. We'll schedule another appointment and come back.
And pay another copay.
Well, thankfully, this was at a military treatment facility, so no copays involved. But this is the deal. So we go in with the guy, and he's just, you know, like, why are you here? You've already got your results. Well, we want to talk about him. And so that's what we said. We have questions. And he looks at my husband and says, what don't you understand? And I just, like, the mama bear in me was about to jump up and say, hold up. But anyway, my husband just said, look, I've only had 2 hours of sleep last night and maybe 8 hours all week. So I'm going to need you to have some patience with me. And I was very grateful. Like, I was like, wow, that was really good communication for the situation. But anyway, we talked through it. It was a really awkward visit. And basically he referred him to neuropsychology, which that was a dead end. So then we get a new primary care provider. I find out about this brain scan called a QEEG. They put this little cap on your head, and basically it tells how your brain's functioning. So an MRI will only tell you if you've had, if pieces are shifted or there may be fluid or something, but it doesn't tell you how it functions. And the QEEG can even look at certain parts of your brain and differentiate, well, this is affected from brain injury, this is affected from PTSD, so forth and so on. So we really wanted that information. He went in to see a psychologist and found out he did have some PTSD issues and worked through that with the EMDR. But this, you know, this referral we get, the doctor says, no, I don't think TRACARE is going to pay for the EEG. So let's do an MRI and neurologist. So we already knew that was going to be no answers. Go see the neurologist. And I'm asking him about vestibular rehab because, you know, in our group, we have a Turning Point Medical, and they have a gyro stim machine and can do all these amazing things for brain injury. And so, okay, what hoop do I have to jump through to get the referral for them, right? So I'm asking the neurologist about this stuff. He's like, oh, that sounds really interesting. I'm like, I feel like you should be the one telling me about this, you know? So anyways, he says, well, actually, we do have some sort of vestibular thing here, and this was on Fort Carson, but the sergeant that does that is in Puerto Rico right now for hurricane relief. So if you want me to, I can put in a referral and maybe she can contact you when you get back. And we were just kind of like, you know what? No, thanks. We'll just keep waiting, you know? Anyway, a couple months later, a friend of mine introduced me to this product that has really been such a helpful tool for us. And it's super simple. It's a tactile pattern that stimulates reflex points in your feet, and it stimulates the brain stem and creates balance in the brain. So the best way to explain it is like if you bought a fixer-upper house and you go in the house and you find a briefcase with $50,000, what are you going to fix first? Are you going to fix the leaky roof, the broken window, paint the house, the carpet, what? Well, that's what your nervous system does with this stimulation. It's extra energy, and your nervous system will balance what it wants to first. So we but I start wearing them. I noticed immediate difference in pain in my back and some other things. And then finally November, he was just really having a rough couple weeks with back pain and migraines and, just no energy. And so I said, I really need you to commit to wearing these every day for 2 weeks. And then if you feel no difference, fine, I'll leave you alone. But I've seen the brain scans, I've seen the evidence, and I really want to see what it would do for your brain, because again, at this point, we've not been diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury. We just assume it. And then the other point that I didn't make earlier about all the pain meds can cause central sleep apnea. So if you've been on long-term prescription, particularly narcotic pain meds, like Vicodin, Percocet, those kind of things, that can cause sleep apnea. So if you have been prescribed that and you aren't sleeping well, it's worth checking in with your doctor, because what that means is your oxygen is really low, so your heart is just pumping like crazy through the night to get more oxygen to the brain. So so anyway, he started wearing the socks. Migraines went away. Things are better. A couple of weeks ago, we had the opportunity to go up to Inglewood here in Denver to have our brains mapped. So we got the EEG. We got to put the thing on, do the scan. This was something that's offered through the company Vox Life. We were part of a study that for a new product that focuses on the frontal lobe. But I brought some socks with me here today. Yeah. So this is the pattern in the bottom. And that's it. It's our nervous systems are so sensitive. I'm going to flip it inside out so you can see, like, there's no magic to it. There's no copper. It's just that little pattern. And we do these stability demos because one of the first things your nervous system will do is correct your stability. So that nagging back pain or knee pain can be due because your nervous system, if you've had trauma, your nervous system is going to tend to back away versus it being the natural center of gravity where your bones are all supporting the weight. So if you've had an injury to the front, like a head-on collision or something like that, then your body may tend to go a little backward, and that can hurt your back because you're crunching it, right? So we do a stability demo in the office, and then basically the products come in socks, and they have small sizes too. So this would be an extra small. So that would be like a child's 1 to 3, a youth 1 to 3 sock. But what we're finding is the more the company's doing these brain maps, we're seeing how neurology conditions like ADHD, autism, things like that, we're seeing on the scans an average of 36% change in neurology.
Wow.
And if you're familiar with neurofeedback, you have to do that like 10, 20 hours just to get like 15% change.
Wow.
So for me, I got 30% change just by putting on a different pair of socks. So it's just,
that's crazy.
Just incredible. So, I really want to reach more military people who may be like us, who may have this invisible injury. And we did find out from my husband's scan, he actually has 3 brain injuries, so across the top. And they said the 2 could have happened at the same time, but definitely the one in the back and the one in the front are from 2 different things, which I have to believe, he got at least one of those from the second parachuting accident, because that's when things really changed. The other thing about the scan was, they do this beautiful 3D image of the brain and has different colors and tells you if you have overactivity, so that would be like anxiety, things like that. But then it also shows that in blue the areas that are really low activity. And so when we looked at the white matter, the inside of the brain, all the connective networks, the things that talk back and forth to tell your heart how many beats to have, controls your thyroid functions, all these things. So for Frank, for his default network, it's mostly blue. There's only like, out of all the connectivity things, there's like 3 green. And it explains our experience, because I think that's why the neuropsych thing didn't work, because you go in and they're like, so tell me how you feel. Like, how do you feel when somebody cuts you off in traffic? Are you irritable? Well, that takes a minute for you to think and process. And the provider accused him of withholding. So he
couldn't process it.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. So he's like, well, when you're ready to talk to me, come back. And my sweet husband just came home like, here I am asking for help. I'm being vulnerable, asking for help. And I'm being ridiculed and accused of false things. So, so here we sit and we're like, well, PTSD and sleep apnea and brain injury were not on our ratings. Do we even bother going back? Is it worth it at this point? And then the struggles. So, for those of you who are going through that and having issues, we looked through his medical record, and the first visit after the parachuting accident, there's a thing where they do the neurological exam and the doctor puts the notes, and he put in the notes, no loss of consciousness, no altered loss of consciousness, even though.
How could he know that?
Well, it's an error, because Frank told him, all I remember was my feet hit the ground, my butt, and then I remember standing up and sand was falling out of my helmet, like hitting my shoulder. So there was a period of time where he didn't recall. Right. So that, at a minimum, would be altered loss of consciousness. But it was just a medical error, and this provider knew Frank, had respect for Frank, was really invested to help him, get back on track in every best way possible. So, even if you could have someone that knows you involved in your medical care and really wanting to see you be better, the point is there's still errors, and so we get it. So there's lots of things alternatively that you can do to help your health. There's vitamins, there's things like the socks, and things like massage. I do a technique that really helps to bring balance back to the spine, not in the same way that chiropractors do. It's very different. It's a very gentle technique, and chiropractic can be gentle too.
Yeah.
But it really helps with low back pain, neck pain, things like that, helping restore some balance back to the structure, and really just working through the nervous system through that trauma. So so I'd love to help anybody.
Yeah. So what parting words of advice would you have? You've shared a few, but there are people out there just like you.
Yeah.
There are families out there that are struggling. I'm going through a VA disability claim right now, or an appeal. So there's many people out there going through an appeal. What would be your advice to them? And what would be your advice to military spouses?
Yeah. So my advice would be, reach out and get some support. I talked weekly with a therapist for like 2-3 years when we were going through a lot of this struggle. Reach out and get that support. We do a thing, we call it Team Ramsden, where if we have to go to an appointment, particularly for him, we go together, because you know what? I feel like if you have that support there in the room when a doctor talks to you like that, or, it is frustrating and you leave with like a prescription that you're not going to take, right? Because you don't know what this drug's going to do. Just to have that unity, because, and I love, like, my faith has gotten me a long ways in this journey, just really sinking into, long time ago, I got this promise in prayer that his back is going to be healed. This is just temporary. And I really just held on to that. So just keep hope. Our bodies are so miraculous and they're so bent toward healing. Who would imagine I didn't even talk about how great this is for people with MS and nervous system issues like that. Who would imagine a little woven pattern on a sock could be such a could do something medication can't do, like neuroelectric shock couldn't do. So there's things that you just haven't seen that are a little different from the way you are used to receiving medical care that can support you. So keep finding those answers, and then just have patience with each other, have grace with each other, because we did this marriage retreat and they talked about the brains being different with the male brain and the female brain. And they said that the male brain had a nothing box. Well, when my husband was really struggling, I just thought he was in his nothing box, you know? And when I would talk to him and he would just stare at me, I'm like, don't you look at me like that. I just asked you a question. You need to answer me, you know? And so now that I realize what we're like our full experience, which is that we are living with brain injury. Now I know, okay, I need to just have patience with him. When he gives me that stare, it's because he's thinking. He's not just looking at me like, you idiot, you know, not that he would, you know, we have a great marriage and great, mutual respect, but
you don't know,
you
don't know that. And if you don't have that knowledge, like you now have, you don't know where that's coming from. So having that support network, and I'm sure if you want to reach out to Dawn in the text below or in the messages below and just say, hey, you know, she's here in Colorado Springs, but there's resources all around the US and all around the world. So connect in, plug into the network, find other people that are going through the same thing you are, or find people who have already navigated the waters of a VA disability claim like I did, because I met Dawn and Dawn told me, and I'm like, can you help me with mine? We did. So we're still waiting to hear on mine, but find those people and find those connections. And especially as a spouse, women connecting with other women and other spouses for your support network is huge. And like Dawn said, to have something else, whether it be network marketing or a crafting job at home or something that you have on the side, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know if your spouse, it could be a female spouse too, so it could be the guy, but you don't know if your spouse is going to get hurt in an injury, because in the military we're exposed to so many things that civilians are not exposed to, and there is a higher risk for injuries. So be prepared, you know, have a plan B and a plan C, because if you don't, it can really rock your world.
And just being able to have the freedom, like, you know, now I work for myself. Vox Life is a direct sales company, so we have that stream of income. So we were able to take a week off at Christmas, and I didn't have to ask anybody for permission to do that. You didn't have to submit a lead. Anyway, so I see Pam ask a question, and I want to answer that real quick. Did he only use the socks or wearing the insoles and socks? So he works from home. He makes like weighted blankets and some embroidery stuff from home. So mostly he's around the house wearing socks. So he mostly wore socks during the day. But then I also bought a pair of we have a thinner insole, which works really good for like dress shoes or minimalist tennis shoes. He didn't want to do a thicker heel, which for the back pain, I was really trying to steer him that way for the extra support. But he just wore the thin insole when he was wearing shoes out and about. And then he, for the most part, 6 days out of 7, most weeks 7 out of 7, he's wearing the box socks during the day. After we got the brain map and he saw, so for him, he had,
so now he's wearing them more.
He had like 40% change. And so he did try to sleep in them, but he's like, they're too tight on my toes. So anyway, but you know, it's like prescription glasses. If you have the socks on, it's stimulating the brainstem. If you take the socks off, it's not. But unlike prescription glasses, with these, because you're constantly, you know, improving neurology, your baseline will continue to improve.
But you also have the patches too, so we could wear the patch at night. Probably.
You could, but they're not as cost effective. They're like $4 a patch versus like $35 for a pair of socks. So. But if you need some support or have questions, feel free to, she tagged me in the post, so feel free to message me or whatever if you just need some support. And we just want to share hope that you're not stuck unless you decide to be stuck. So you can reach out, you can get support and change where you are.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks everyone for watching. We love building relationships. Dawn is very much a relationship building person also. So please, please, please put in the comments if you're watching this live, 1, and if you're watching the replay, a 2. If you've gotten value out of it, put your favorite emoji and like and share it with your timeline. We would love to get the word out, especially on this around the world to military families. So please, please, please share with your networks. And if you have any questions, type those below and Dawn or myself will get back to you. So with that, I will see you next Monday on Military Mondays, everyone. Thank you.